Hello, friends. I'm Kanchan from Akulmek Technologies, and you are welcome to our show, Great Kings of India. Today, we have eminent historian Mrs. Meeta Joshi, who is a head of the department of one of the prestigious college, St. Anne's College at Hyderabad. So, today we'll be discussing about one of the greatest king, Kanishka. So, welcome to the show, madam. How are you doing today?
Namaskar, Kanchan. I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine. And as you know, that we are discussing about Kanishka, one or we say Kanishka the Great, an emperor of Kushan dynasty in second century, and is famous for his military, political, spiritual achievements. So let me hear and our you viewers hear about this great king.
See, Kanchan, Kanishka belonged to the Kushan dynasty, and Kushans were people who belonged to Yuchi tribe of China, and they were nomads. Nomad means they were just moving from one place to another. So they came to India in first century AD under the leadership of Kajula Catphyses, or you can he was also known as Catphyses I, and after him, Vima Catphyses succeeded him, and then came Kanishka. So Kanishka came to throne in 78 AD. And why Kanishka's rule is so important? Because many things happened under his rule. He captured, first of all, Magadha, made Patliputra his capital, and it was then he met Ashwaghosha, a Buddhist monk, and then in fact, Ashwaghosha was one of the luminaries of his court, Kanishka's court. And after meeting Ashwaghosha, there were many changes in Kanishka, and later when he was in middle of his rule, he adopted Buddhism as his religion. But many historians say that he was a polytheist, he believed in many religions. But the work he has done in Buddhism, in propagating Buddhism, in building many monasteries, renovating old monasteries, so all that indicates that he adopted Buddhism as his religion. Now, his rule was not only in India, but it was in foreign countries also, because he had a series of conquests. First, he captured Magadha, then came the Saka Satrapas of northern India. After that was a very significant war with China. So when he defeated China, then the boundaries of his empire, they were like not only in India, UP, and then Punjab, Sindh, Kashmir, okay, Bihar, regions up to Vindhya mountains in the south. And if you see the foreign countries, okay, so his empire was extended till Afghanistan, Bactria, and three trans-Pamir regions. And those three regions were Kashgar, Yarkand, and Khotan. And that time he kept his capital at Purushpur, now the modern Peshawar. So not only in India, but the um, reach of Kushan's empire was still Central Asia. A huge empire, a very huge empire after the Mauryas. After the decline of Mauryas, no one could have such an extensive empire as Kushan's had under the leadership of Kanishka. Now, why he is uh, much researched and much talked about? Because of his contribution to Buddhism. Because he worked so much to propagate the teachings of Buddhism far and wide. Only one difference between him and Ashoka is that Ashoka, after adopting Buddhism, he adopted the policy of non violence and he stopped waging wars. But Kanishka was propagating Buddhism, and at the same time he was expanding his empires through waging conquests and wars. So this was the difference between Kanishka and Ashoka. Ashoka left the wars altogether after adopting Buddhism. But Kanishka said, this is one thing, this is another thing. Empire is, important, as well as religion is also important. And one very prominent thing which happened in Kanishka's reign was he convened the fourth Buddhist council at Kashmir. There were four Buddhist councils which were held: Rajgriha, Vaishali, Patliputra, and Kashmir. So the fourth Buddhist council was convened by Kanishka in Kashmir. And many scholars like Vasumitra, Ashwagosha, Nagarjuna, they attended that Buddhist council. And it is said that around 500 monks, they attended that Buddhist council. And very important decisions were taken in that meeting. And the biggest decision was the, adopting Mahayana. Because in that council only, Buddhism was divided into two sects. Hinayana was the older order, and now Mahayana was the new order. So this happened in the fourth Buddhist council at Kashmir under the patronage of Kanishka. He gave lot of grants to the Buddhist monks, to their monasteries. He took care of their expenses, and the literature which was developed during his reign was excellent, because all great scholars like Nagarjuna, Vasumitra, Ashwagosha wrote Buddha Charita that time, and Nagarjuna was there, Vasumitra was there. So art, religion, culture, literature, everything flourished under Kanishka's rule. So this was, I can say that, golden time, culture-wise, literature-wise, art-wise, because he made sure. And yes, when I say art, Gandhara school of art, it originated in Kanishka rule only.
Okay.
And Gandhara school of art, still you can see the work of that time period.
Right.
So it was Indo-Greek fusion, the Gandhara school of art. It originated in Kanishka's rule.
Okay.
And if you see many buildings he constructed, one is very famous, Shahji Ki Dheri. In it is a relic tower of bronze known as Shahji Ki Dheri, and it was a huge stupa and monastery about 400 feet high, which was built with the help of a Greek architect, Agosla. So this exchange of culture also happened in the Kanishka's rule. Then, as I told you, that he used art for the propagation of Buddhism. The sculptors and the painters of that period, they painted images of Buddha, they made statues of Buddha. So that way, it was his time period was a very rich time period, I must say. Religion, culture, art, architecture, and even his administration also was very unique, because what he did, he divided the empire into several small administrative units known as Rashtra, Ahara, Janpada, Vishya, and everything was very, organized and planned very meticulously when it came to administration. That's why he was able to extend the boundaries of his empire till Central Asia. So, though foreigner by origin, but an Indian by heart, Kanishka, because they adopted the culture.
Right.
They were totally into the culture of India. Though he belonged to China, but he adopted entirely, Indianness in his life. So this was very unique. about Kanishka.
So, what is the impact of his empire on Indian subcontinent? Because I said that I think that after Maurya Empire, Kanishka Empire was the largest one.
Yes, it was the Kushans, we say collectively Kushans because Catphises won, then Bhima Catphises. They also captured, like, if you see the first leader, Catphises won, he was able to capture Kandahar, Kabul, Afghanistan that time when they came to India.
Mhm.
And then they slowly, they extended their boundaries. The impact was the culture, a fusion culture which, Greek, Indians, and this Yuchi tribe, all that, got, there was a fusion of culture. And as I said, Gandhara School of Art, another new thing which happened in his reign. Then the literature which was developed. I will tell you some names of some very good literature like Buddha Charita by Ashwagosha, then Sundarkand Kavya, which narrates specific events of Buddha's life, then Sariputra Prakarna, so and Brahmanic literature also, not only Buddhist literature, Brahmanic literature in Sanskrit was also developed. So he was a person who was a very tolerant king. Not only that's why many historians they say that he was a polytheist when it came to religion because he believed in every religion. That's why all development and progress in every language you can witness in his lifetime. Sanskrit, Prakrit, Brahmi, all those languages, they were, because he patronized those people, he respected those people, he gave seat to those people in his court. So if you say the impact, it was very deep because culture-wise there was it was enriched. Literature-wise there was an enrichment. Art-wise there was an enrichment. Administration was very sound. And after him, uh, two more successors were there, but they were not able to sustain the empire as Kanishka did. And then after him, there was completely a fall of decline of Kushan Empire, and then you can see that other people they came. And yes, one more thing which happened in Kanishka's time was the transformation in how the people dressed. Before that, pagadi, hat, this was not very common. But after like Kanishka's rule, like the pagadi and caps and overcoats, they all came into vogue. Dhoti, they all came into vogue. And ornaments of various types like necklaces, bracelets, eardrops, bangles, and both men and women used to wear the ornaments. It was not only women wore, but men also wore all the ornaments. And then food also, because they brought their culture, so there was a fusion in the cuisine also. And social conditions, if you see the society that time, there was a traditional caste system which was coming from previous ages. And these castes now were not based on wealth or profession but birth. And just remember that when the caste system originated, it was only and only on the basis of profession,
Right.
but now it was on the basis of birth.
Okay.
So all these things you can see in Kanishka's rule.
So actually,
And
when I was
not
When I was in school and when I read about Kanishka, I was so impressed that it happened that we went to Mathura and there was in museum. There's a huge statue of Kanishka without an head. So it is said that it been broken by a few people who didn't like the empire. So I also heard that systematically Kanishka's history is being erased by people after Kanishka's dynasty, after Kanishka's death. Systematically, it is being erased from the history books. So, if it is true, then why it is done?
Politics, Kanchan. Because certain set of people, they don't like our Hinduism, Brahmanism to be popular, which is very, very sad, because India was a secular country, and India will remain a secular country. Every religion has is always was always respected in India, because see, in Kanishka's rule, Buddhism, Jainism, and Brahmanism, three were given equal importance. Though the king adopted Buddhism does not mean that the whole public will also adopt Buddhism. Freedom was there. Freedom, a person had a right to choose. So why all these things got deleted from our history books? 110% politics. And politics plus the people who wrote history that time, you know, they had a Western outlook. So they glorified the Westerners, the Britishers, and the people who like they glorify Alexander. Alexander was just an invader. And what message you are giving to the coming generation by glorifying an invader?
Right.
So see, the good historians who wrote very, very authentically about ancient India or medieval India or modern India, those books are not recommended in our universities. It is very sad to say that.
Okay.
Very sad.
Okay. Yeah.
But our children should know that, India, see, before Britishers, you never find any word as communal or secular in our history, because it was not there. If you come to Hyderabad and if you read about the Qutub Shahi dynasty, they were so secular that the Golconda Sultan himself got constructed a Kali temple inside the Golconda fort for the Bonalu festival.
Okay.
And every Ram Navami in the Bhadrachalam temple, the first offering would go from the Qutub Shahi Sultan, who was a Muslim,
Mm-hmm.
and the Lord Rama was offered those things by the Qutub Shahi king. So India never witnessed all that before these Britishers came, and they adopted this policy of divide and rule. And then some few Indians got so mesmerized by the Britishers that they thought that whatever Britishers are doing or whatever Britishers are saying is only true,
Right.
which was not the case.
Right. So, ma'am, how you will summarize the personality and the king profile of Kanishka in few words?
See, I can just say that he was one of the greatest kings of Kushans of India, who did very, very commendable work in propagation of Buddhism. Not only Buddhism, all the religions which were prevalent that time, Brahmanism, Jainism, they also got equal importance. Their literature was also developed that time, and he patronized people from irrespective of their caste, creed, or religion. If you have that caliber, he patronized. Suppose I was an author, he respected that, and he used to sponsor that person. So which is because that's why we have so rich literature to refer to. Otherwise, see, when you see the Indian historiography, in medieval age, when the Islamic people, kings came, they only started keeping the chroniclers in the court to record the day-to-day activity. Before that, many good literature we don't have. Either it was burnt by the invaders, like Alexander when he came, or Mahmud Ghazni when he came, or Muhammad Ghori when they came. So they came to plunder the wealth. Plus, because they had no, they were not sophisticated people, barbaric. They knew only barbarism. So they killed, they destroyed many monuments. They destroyed. They burned palaces and palaces. So all our that rich literature we lost. So he was a very important king of Kushans, of India, and he will be always remembered for his work which he did in administration, in social aspects, in propagating Buddhism. So he will be remembered for that always.
It was so wonderful to talk to you, Mitaji, and we'll be meeting again in our next episode with one of the greatest king, again discussing about his profile and the impact of his rule on India. So till next time, bye bye, take care.
Thank you, Panch.